Hey guys, Noodle here. Today I wanted to show you how I quickly create textures for large-scale sci-fi structures like buildings and spaceships. Not only does this method handle the textures on your models, but also a lot of the modeling details as well. I've linked below some resources that I use and that you can use as well that are free and easy. Without any more hesitation, let's get right into the tutorial. So starting off, I'm gonna use Jsplacement. This is a procedural texture creation software. So essentially it's a free resource online that creates sci-fi textures super fast. You'll see there's a bunch of different settings over here that you can choose from. We're gonna go with classic and dot grid today, but there's a bunch that you can choose from. Jsplacement 2 is also, if you're going for more of like a modern militaristic, you can see it just generates essentially seamless height maps, and there are other maps, but we're only going to be using a height map for this video and an emissive texture. But other than that, that's all we're going to need to create our buildings, our spaceships. But there's plenty of options in here, editing how the shape actually forms. You can create different sizes, different shapes out of it. The one I'm going to be using is Displacement Classic. I just really like it for the fact that it gives that Star Wars feel, that Blade Runner feel. I just like the simplicity of it, yet simultaneously the chaos and the natural, just interesting textures you get. And you find that even with some seamless textures, they aren't as seamless as advertised. You know, you go to actually apply them, and you can very much see the seams, even if they are quote-unquote seamless. But I found that this texture generator actually creates really seamless textures, and it takes quite a while to actually begin to see tiling, and it's very easy to work out how to prevent that tiling and make it look better. So I absolutely love this software. It's been amazing. You can click on different ones so you can take away different shapes. So I could, for example, just have lines, get this super crazy noise texture, and you can kind of see what's going on. It's just random noise generated at certain shapes. So I could just do this one, I could just do that. You can see you can get very simple textures, and then you can go all the way and get really complex, interesting layered textures. So I've already pre-made a few textures off of this software that I'm gonna leave down this in the description below. So if you don't want to go ahead and have to download this software and work on your own, they're linked below, free to use on any of your artwork. So yeah, just make sure to click there. There's a Google Drive link so you can access everything. But this software is absolutely amazing. I would really recommend giving it a try. So I exported textures from both the Jsplacement Classic and also the dot grid. The dot grid gives really good like window lights. There's really small dots that you see kind of glowing off of all these large sci-fi structures. So this is super useful. I kind of customized it for the look that I want it. For example, I don't really like shapes like this, and you'll see I can just take it away and it'll actually go and make it how I want it. So I've already gone ahead, customized this in different ways. You can see you can really get crazy with it. So I already pre-made them, and we're just going to take this into Blender and start creating our spaceship. Okay, so now jumping into Blender, I'm quickly going to show how we can actually go about creating this displacement, and then I'm going to go and create a spaceship using the same technique. So let's just go over the technique really quickly. So if I add a plane into Blender real fast and apply to it a texture, let me see, I'm going to pick out this one, just an example. Now we'll see, it's already unwrapped for us. So as you can see, there is no actual mesh extruding, and if I switch to cycles, you'll see actual mesh extruding. So we actually want to go ahead and extrude the mesh, but we want to do that using the material. So there is one way where you can actually go in and add a displacement, but I don't really like doing this technique for this situation just because it won't align perfectly with the texture if we do any kind of weird mapping or anything, and there's just limitations to it. And there's actually a way we can do it in the node editor with the material. So if I go down to the material here, and let's just keep our principled, but we're actually going to disconnect that and attach it through a displacement node. Make sure to add this. If you don't add this, you'll get a very wonky sort of result where it actually extrudes slanted. You don't really want that, so plug that into your displacement node, switch this to non-color, and bring that into your height. So now you'll see it's acting sort of as a bump node, but that's still not what we want because it's still perfectly flat, and that's not actually the detailing that we want. Let me bring this down just so we can see. And what we actually want to do is go down to the materials, or before we do that, make sure to go from supported to experimental. That's so we can actually do what we're about to do. Go to our materials, go down to settings, and switch it from bump only under displacement, under settings, surface displacement, bump only, to displacement and bump. And now you'll see it's actually displacing the mesh, but the problem is we don't have enough mesh to actually be displaced. So I could go ahead and subdivide it a bunch of times, and you'll see it actually starts to add that detail, but it would take a ton of subdivisions to actually get that correctly, and it would run our renders super slow. It would make our workflow super slow, and we're not going to want to do that. So I'm going to leave it completely unsubdivided, and what I'm going to do is actually add a subdivision surface, switching it to simple, making sure to bring this all down to 0, because we're not actually going to use the regular, because again, I'm going to have to bring it way up before I start seeing any detail. And I actually want to make sure that's on 0, by the way. That's going to be very important. Switch it to simple and click adaptive subdivision. So now you'll see it actually goes and extrudes it outward, and we can actually adjust this using this, bring it down to 0.1, and you can see now it's actually extruding it. But our mesh doesn't appear to have really quite enough subdivision to actually, you know, read the details well. So what we actually want to do is go here, drop this number to something like I would say 0.5. It really depends on your computer. The lower the number, the higher the subdivision, the slower it'll run. I'm going to bring up my viewport settings so you can actually see this. And now you can see it's really accurately extruding that mesh outward. Again, I'm going to drop that. It's like 0.05. And that's looking good. And we can also go ahead and add in a camera. Let's see, right here, camera. I'm going to lock it to my view. And just make sure it's only on here. And if you see when we render, it'll render it at a higher rate. So in here, you can actually see, hold on 1 second, let's let this render. You'll see it's actually rendering much higher poly. It's actually getting all the little shapes from that texture and getting all those details. But what you'll see is if I click on this object, you'll see that in your viewport it's 4 pixels, in the render it's 0.5. Again, raising the local viewport actually makes it more actually accurate to the final. But yeah, in your final you'll actually get that really accurate read on the shape, which is what we want. So as you can see, we can quickly add sci-fi details. So now I'm actually going to show you how you can use this to create something like a Star Destroyer or a spaceship or a building or whatever you want to create. But we're just going to create a Star Destroyer for this video just to show kind of the process. I'm going to keep the camera and the lamp. I'm going to move that to a different folder right in my scene collections, so I can move that up here and just not see them for a little bit. So to create a Star Destroyer, sort of my process is I first add a plane, move to the viewport, widen it out, add a middle point, bring it up, maybe stretch it out, just keep playing with that until it looks about right. And perfect. And then I can just extrude it out along this way, view it from top down, and just scale it down. And we're actually going to do a Star Destroyer much similar to the game Star Wars: The Old Republic, where the Sith Empire, they use this sort of Star Destroyer that has a shape where it has this cutout center. So let me do that really fast. I'm going to quickly do that. I'm not going to be too exact for this, just so I can show you guys how it works. Boom. Right there we have a very simple shape kind of going on, but it kind of looks like a forked dagger. It kind of has a nice look to it. And again, keep everything really low poly, keep everything really simple. In this use case, we're not really going to need a ton of mesh because again, our texture is doing most of the work for us. Let's see, I'm also going to add this. I'm going to separate that, duplicate it, and then I'm just going to add a loop cut right here. So we can just take this top piece. And I'm going to extrude that up. So now we sort of have our very basic shape for a Star Destroyer. Also, I'm going to take this bottom, flatten it like that, and then make sure it's all the way down into the shape, and delete those faces. Again, any faces you can't see, you're going to want to make sure to delete, because when we actually go and subdivide it, it will subdivide things that aren't in view. and that's really going to slow down the render, and as few faces as you need is how many you want. If you can delete faces without them being seen, definitely do that. Let's see, now I'm just going to add a bridge, go into wireframe mode, extruding that out like that, and quickly, yep, creating a nice bridge, and bringing that up like that, and I'm going to add another cube. Add another middle point just to kind of replicate that overall shape, and now you can see we're actually getting something a little bit closer to a Star Destroyer. Let me see, I'm going to shrink that down, bring that down a little bit. I'm actually going to let it sit on that a little bit like that. And I'm also going to bring this face out just to kind of make it more natural. I might even bring this in actually, just so it tucks in like that. Yeah, I like that better. And yeah, that's just kind of our basic shape. Nothing too crazy, nothing too complex. Now what we're going to do is create that sort of sandwich shape on the top and bottom that you see. But before we do that, we're actually going to want to mirror these shapes so we can maintain symmetry. Yeah, I'm going to mirror that. Make sure clipping is set on. Same with this. Make sure clipping is set on. And now we can actually go and add sort of that sandwiched roof and floor on the ship. Kind of makes things easier. Again, I'm going to duplicate. I'm going to separate it by the object. And I'm going to switch to my normal transform orientation so that I can actually go and let me see. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't for you. Sometimes it can be kind of weird. Yeah, I'm actually going to just keep it in global for now. And I'm going to have to manually set it, so bring it down to right about there. Just so I kind of have that slanted roof. Where it kind of extrudes out over the shape. But it doesn't matter, again, the accuracy of that, because we are going to add a solidify modifier to that. Just make sure it merges with the bottom of the shape like that. That's what's going to be important for you. And I'm going to add a solidify, so let's add that, and you can see I need to apply my scale, and I want it set the other way. Okay, cool. Just quickly doing that. I'm going to do the same for this shape. Again, separating it, and selecting it by normal. Nope, again global. And I'm actually going to merge it with this shape so I quickly kind of get that result I want. And there you go. Now you have that slanted roof. It looks really good. It kind of works quickly, and it kind of feels like the ship is sandwiched. But also, I want to go and actually mirror this on the top and bottom. So I'm going to bring this down to the bottom. I'm going to select this shape to mirror along, and yep, right there. And real fast, we're going to apply that mirror so that we can actually go and take away this face, because we don't want that one. And there we go. Now quickly we've created sort of this base Star Destroyer shape. I'm also going to go ahead and bevel this out. So we'll bring that in. And yeah, that's going to exist sort of as our shape for now. Nothing too crazy, nothing too complex. We want to keep this as low poly as possible because the material is going to be doing most of the work. Now before I add that material, real fast, I'm going to add a loop cut right here. I'm going to extrude it so it's just a little bit thicker than that. And then I'm going to add a loop cut there. And I'm going to delete that face. And so quickly we've kind of created a dock. So I'm going to duplicate it once more. Delete by the selection. Sorry if you can hear any noises in the background. I got a thunderstorm going on and people are running home and going crazy right now, so just bear with some of the sound that's going on. Let's see, let me check my face orientation just to make everything's in check. Yep, everything seems to be looking good. Yeah, I'm just going to bring that out just so it kind of exists as our port. And also I'm gonna look at the other side. I'm gonna bring that really deep in, so that sort of acts as our dock. And again, this isn't gonna have that displacement on it, so I don't really have to worry so much about deleting faces with this one. Should be all good. I might actually just delete them just so I can fill in this right here. And there we go. Now we have a dock. And also what I see on a lot of Star Wars ships is beveling this interior. Let me make sure the scale is applied. Beveling that inward so I can actually round that out. Let me increase that right there. Shade auto smooth, and looking good. So now we can actually go about creating our materials, and this is what's going to actually act real fast. Let me fix this. Yep, that works. And bring that out. What I'm actually going to do is start adding my materials, and this is where you're going to see the displacement actually do sort of the work for me and add a ton of detail to the ship. So let me just select one of the shapes. Again, I'm not going to need these interfaces now that I've sandwiched it. I know I can actually take these away. So you'll see, I don't actually see that because of the plates. So I don't need it. Again, probably same with this. Don't need this rooftop. And there we go. Now we have as low poly as possible. And I'm gonna add again that material. I'm gonna call this one detail because that was our more detailed mesh. And I can also duplicate that and name another one plate. So then on this one, I know I want on the insides details, on this plates, detail, and I should be all good. And now you'll see it's actually not going and wrapping around the shape right, and that's because we haven't UV unwrapped yet. So what we're actually going to do, select everything that's going to get this displacement, and we're going to first apply the modifiers, and I'm going to control and join it together and apply the scale. Again, you might want to duplicate this into a different group just in case you want to save your work as you go along. I'm just showing this for a tutorial example, but it's a good idea to keep saving and keep duplicating it into different folders. So now I'm actually going to scale this up so the details are smaller on it until I'm happy. And yeah, and I got to make sure that the right shapes have plate assigned. So this has plate, plate, and then I actually want to make sure the top and the bottom of this actually have the plate texture on it. I don't want that super detailed. And our plate texture sort of exists as our smoother surface. You don't want a ton of like bumpy details all over, or else the shape is going to be really hard to read. You want to use the detailed areas sparingly and kind of aid to the design theory, like how would this actually be built. So yeah, all those have plate, and let me make sure I can actually see that that's correct by going ahead and switching in plate to my plate's texture. And now you'll see, yeah, we have more of a plate. What I'm also going to do is I'm going to go Shift G, select by material. So now it's selected everything with the plates texture, and I want to make the plates a little bit larger. So just scale that down in the UV editor until those look a little bit bigger, and okay, I'm liking that. So now we can actually go and use this to create our displacement texture. So once again, it's already in displacement. We want to just add subdivision and set it to adaptive subdivision. Oh wait, make sure before you click that, set this all to 0. Hit simple, adaptive subdivision. Once again, set that to 0.5, kind of like that setting. And I'm just going to take a look. So let me also take the camera and move this to an appropriate place where it kind of works. Let's see, right there should work. And yeah, I'm going to make this a little bit stronger just so we can kind of see. 3. Yeah, perfect. And I also want to make sure that my camera view isn't on. And now you can see it's actually going and extruding some of that detail. But you'll notice in the viewport, once again, that it's not looking that great because of 4 pixels. I can raise that up. And right off the bat, I can see that my plates are extruding too much. So I can go to plate and scale that down to something like 0.2. And my details I actually want higher, so I'm actually going to raise that up to 0.1. And there we go. Okay, so now we can actually go, oh, and also forgot one little thing. want to make that where it's not flush. Yeah, try to make things flush with it. This roof type of structure, it looks a lot better when it's actually extruded outward like that. Bring that down a little bit. Okay, cool. And now we're just going to do a quick test render and kind of see how things are turning out. Okay, so now with this rendered, you can kind of see that it's already getting these plate details and these inner details. I actually think I want to scale this all to be a little bit bigger again, just to kind of make sure that everything's looking okay. Let me see. Also, what I'm going to do is for both, I'm going to go here. Oh, also make sure, this is very important, that this is set to non-color. That's going to be very important for what we're doing. But this one is sRGB. I'm going to feed that through a color ramp node. And it's actually going to make our texture a little bit more visible, so you'll see what's kind of happening. Now it's using the texture as sort of an image texture, but this is how I reduce the contrast, just so I can scale that up. And that's just going to create variation, so it looks like there's different wear and tear on different plates. I could even raise that up a little bit more. And I'm going to do the same for this, for detail. I'm going to again duplicate it, make sure this one is set to sRGB, and put it through a color ramp. Once again, and I might actually go a little bit darker on this one, so I'm going to raise this up to like a middle gray, and I'm actually going to bring white down a little bit, so it kind of separates the details a little bit. And now we're starting to see, let me see, what else do I need to do? I'm going to take this whole thing and scale the texture up a little bit. Be careful doing this in the viewport, it can very easily crash Blender. And also, just to help aid to the scale, sometimes you want to play with camera angle, and you know, that can just help push the whole thing forward. So now, yeah, now it feels a little bit bigger. Let's just take another look through the render. Let's just see, and it can take a bit to render. This can be pretty computer intensive. This can really wear down on the computer, so be sparing with how you use this tool. Use it too much, you can very quickly run out of system memory, and then Blender just won't render it. So you got to play around with the settings, find what's best for your computer, and just be sparing with the tool, and you're gonna get the most out of it. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So I'm starting to like these details and everything. I'm just gonna add some final things, just show some extra details that you can kind of add to lift this up. I'm not gonna go too in depth. I'm gonna leave that up to you, leave it up to the imagination, but you can start actually adding secondary details now. So some more secondary details. So for one, I'm gonna make sure this is set to the right order. Oh, I'm gonna make sure my cursor is in the right spot. I'm gonna add a quick point lamp right to in here. Bring that forward a little bit. Maybe up the power to like 25. And I'm gonna make it a little bit of a bluish color, just so it kind of has some glow coming out of it. I'm also going to go up here, and I'm going to add a quick bridge. I'm going to do this very simply. I'm just going to do a cube. You can do really any shape. I mean, this is really up to like whatever you want to create. This technique kind of works for everything. I'm going to bevel these edges. Let me make sure the scale is applied. I'm going to bevel them. I'm not going to do round, I'm just going to do a flat bevel. I'm going to add another bevel, just so I can create an inset. ES Shift C, so extruding inward. I'm going to move it back until it feels about right. Perfect. And again, here's another thing I'm going to do. I'm going to go to my plate, I'm going to duplicate that, and then I'm actually going to go ahead and remove the displacement. So now we just have something where it doesn't have any actual bump detail, and it can just exist without the displacement. But I am going to add a bump node, which actually with texturing will instead add that bumpy sort of texture that we need. Plug it in the height and then the normal, and now it just has like a bump. I'm going to lower that to like 0.5. And then for this inner texture, or first let me quickly project that, make sure that's scaled correctly so that kind of matches with everything. With this inner texture, you can actually use image textures from textures.com or from photos you've taken, drone footage, whatever, and actually use building textures to add some of that extra detail. So I'm going to quickly show how to do that. Let's see, I'm going to call it window, and I'm quickly just going to input an image texture, and I grabbed these Windows textures right here, and I can just sign that real quick. and I can quickly scale it, bring it down to one of the windows, and you'll see now we sort of have a cockpit. Let me get that tree also out of there so you don't see the tree. It'd be weird if a bridge of a ship had a tree in it, but you know, all depends on the pilot or the captain, whatever they want to do with their ship. I guess it's their call. Might even scale that down a little bit just so it adds to the scale. Bring that out a little bit like that. Okay, cool. And in the shader editor, I'm actually, instead of an principled, I'm going to add an add shader, plug the image into an emission shader, and leave the other one empty so that it's basically perfectly black. Raise this to like 5. And what I also like to do to kind of match the color is I first add a saturation node, bring that all the way down, and mix it with just another color set to multiply, so it'll actually kind of stain the thing a different color. And again, I'm going to make it that bluish color. Raise my factor up a little bit, and now you'll see we've quickly added a bridge. And again, you can just play around with this until it looks right to you, but for now that'll work. Let's just do one final render. I'm gonna up that lamp. Again, you can go really in depth with this. I'm going very light. You can go really far with this until you're happy with the results, but I'm just trying to show sort of the basic technique of how you can apply this to actually creating something. Let's do one final render and I think we'll be good to go for today. Okay, so this is our final result for now, and you can kind of see it's adding all these little details. Again, you don't even have to use these height maps. You can use a series of other height maps. The ones we created in Jsplacement I really like. These actually work really well for buildings particularly, but you know, it applies to many use cases. You can mix up different textures, try different things, and just see what works for you. You can keep adding details. I would actually really recommend going into something like this and continuously layering on details just to add to that feeling. But that initial layer of detail, sort of chaos, can really propel your scene forward so that you can create these large scale objects with tons of detail a lot easier right out the gate. So I hope this tutorial helped you. If you like this, make sure to like and subscribe. I also have a playlist where I have all my Blender tutorials where I create things like spaceships, buildings, environments. I do a whole bunch of stuff, create a lot of time lapses. So if you like what you see, make sure to like and subscribe, and hope to see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.